Hi again, everybody. Here we are at day 7, which is October 10th. Now, this class is the peer review workshop for project number 2, the collage. And it's also the class where you introduce project 3, which is the first step of the long-term research project that they're going to be doing for the rest of the class. Those are the two sort of big outcomes that you're really looking at here. You will want to print out and bring copies of the Project 2 workshop worksheet, which of course is on Canvas under handouts. And if you like to bring paper copies of the prompts, I find they're nice sometimes, but it's up to you. You bring the prompt for Project 3 in the appropriate number. So let's talk first about the Project 2 workshop. This thing takes up about 40 minutes of class time, I bet. So it's going to be the biggest part of the day. This is, again, like last time, a silent workshop for the most part. They are filling in a worksheet as they do their analysis, and then they're giving the worksheet back to the collage creator. So that's the primary artifact they're working around. Take a look, read through the questions before you get there so that you can explain them to them and read through them together so that you're sure everybody understands. But in essence, they are working in pairs with their partner from the collage project. They are reading another pair's collage, responding to. First step is they'll be responding to the collage itself, visual or audio, and they'll be describing how it works, what they notice about it, what effects it has on them as readers. And they'll also then be paying attention to the design reflection and sort of comparing what they thought of the piece to how the original creators built it. And they'll be building that comparison in. So they'll be doing both of those in writing on the worksheet, which they'll focus on for the workshop, show them, discuss it back with the authors, and then turn in to you so you can take a look at it. As with last time, I tend to just read those for curiosity more than anything else, how they're doing at giving feedback. That gives me good cues about how I need to model good feedback language. A lot of the time they don't know what to say, and to sort of reframe them on the purpose of this kind of workshop, which is probably quite different from what they're used to. So, you've done the workshop. Things are moving on to the next thing. You are handing out the prompt for Project 3 if you're giving it to them on paper, and spend 5 minutes or so, maybe more than that, talking through what is Project 3 and how does it work. In the simplest form, the form that I've designed it, it is an email that they will be writing to their new partner, which will be assigned next time. That discusses what they think they might want to do a research project on, how they think they'd be able to do it, and other details about sort of figuring out this project. You can talk through the prompt as it is yourself. You can do this one a few different ways. I really like the idea of it being they write the email to their partner, they CC me as the teacher, and that's how they turn it in. For me, it adds a really interesting level of stakes to sending an email that really replicates what it's like to send an email, I think, to an authority figure like a professor or a boss. So I think that it has some useful rhetorical effect by coming through the email. But you could have them submit it on Canvas as well. You could have them post it to WordPress as well if you wanted to. I think the email is probably the best and easiest way to do it. The next thing that happens after you've talked through that a bit is brainstorming ideas for their research project, for things that they could talk about in this pre-proposal letter. Now, what I've given you in the notebook is this confusing triangle chart, which was my way of thinking through the aspects of a research project that we're asking them to do. That's on page 33 in the notebook if you want to open it up and play along. So what I was trying to do is I was trying to demonstrate how you go from a topic that you're interested in and build a research project around it that will actually be doable and functional. So in this case, at the center is the topic you're interested in, which is NFL anthem protest and media bias. There's writing-related stuff in there. There's rhetoric in there and public rhetorics. There's multimodal rhetoric in that it's a communication that happens through kneeling or not kneeling, being present or not being present. You could do interesting analysis there, I think. Potentially viable topic. What the focus here on is at that bottom line, which is the object of study. This question is, what can you actually get access to analyze in regard to this question? Because you're not just going to talk about it generally. This is not an argumentative essay where you're trying to make a point based on secondary research and logic. This is a research study wherein you're gathering stuff, primary research, and you're looking at it for your answers. You're going to the evidence, to the data. So you've got to figure out what kind of data you can possibly get from this. I've found, in this case, what if it could be all the sports pages in the Bellingham Herald between 2014 and 2018? See how those are talking about this topic, and that can be your objects of study. It won't, of course, represent the entire national discourse, but it'll be something small enough that you can actually study it. So by pushing them to name an object of study that they can get their hands on, it helps them pen in their research question a little better to something like, how do sports lovers in Bellingham respond to this, and why might that be different from the larger media coverage that we can see in secondary research? So they can still have the secondary research, but they need to be able to frame it in something they can get a hold of. Methods of study is what process are you going to actually go through to get your hands on this data. That one's more straightforward. Maybe you're going to go to digital archives from all of those newspapers, or you're going to go to the library and find all the paper copies and photocopy them, if they still do that. But the method that you're going to go through to actually get the things. And finally, the question of your study, which is, what do you want to know from looking at these things? What do you expect to find by looking at newspapers about this that might talk about this topic that will be useful to you? And they might not be able to articulate this part very well yet. It's going to take them sitting with the topic a bit more to really have a good research question. And we have a few classes coming up that are really just devoted to research questions. So tell them not to worry if they can't figure that part out yet. But finding the object of study, figuring out the method of gathering your data, those are the things that we really need to think about now as practicalities. And then from there, let it speak to you about what this data can actually tell you. The point is, I don't want them coming in with a thesis to prove. That's not what this is about. This is about an inquiry. This is about a fact-finding mission. And from there, they analyze. They become scholars of the text that they themselves have found. Which is a different way of doing things than they might be used to, and that's okay. They have a few steps to go through before they have to really do it. So I hope they find that reassuring. Once you've talked it through, you don't have to use the anthem protests example. I encourage you to find one that sounds better to you. You can also draw from one of the many research topics that you all came up with in Comp Camp. Katie and I will provide a list of those for you to use at this part in the lesson. If you want to show them a bunch and demonstrate how they would work in a larger context with finding an object of study, you could really study with coming up with a method to do that and a question to ask based on what you can find. You can talk through it with a different example if you want to. Last thing is doing a bit of brainstorming and free writing. You can see the questions that come there, but basically it asks them to come up with a whole range of possible topics and then to narrow down to ones that are both, they can both do them personally and they're intimately about concepts of writing. So that'll be a useful way for them to both gather and then winnow down a little bit. And that's where the day ends, with the brainstorming. The homework this time is to turn in the collage project. I have it turned into WordPress and using the category label collage. And to watch a video, built right here at Western, called Building a Theory versus Writing a Thesis-Driven Argument, which should give them some more context for what we're talking about here. So if this is all still a bit up in the air for them, that video should help narrow some things down, and the activities next time should help them get even more concrete on what this all means.